What if the reason people don't remember you has nothing to do with your intelligence, your appearance, or even your success? What if the people who naturally attract trust, admiration, and lasting relationships all share a few simple habits that almost anyone can learn, but almost no one is ever taught? This single idea has transformed the lives of countless people, and by the end of this audiobook, it may completely change the way you see every conversation you'll ever have. Over the next hour, you'll discover the hidden psychology behind genuine charisma. You'll learn how to become someone people instantly feel comfortable around, how to build trust without trying too hard, how to communicate with quiet confidence, and why the smallest changes in your daily behavior can completely transform the quality of your relationships. These are not complicated techniques or clever tricks. They are practical principles that have helped countless people build stronger friendships, deeper relationships, and a lasting presence that others naturally admire and respect. Most people spend their entire lives believing that being likable is something you're either born with or without. They assume charisma is a gift reserved for a lucky few. But what if that's one of the biggest myths about human relationships? What if becoming magnetic has nothing to do with being the loudest person in the room, the funniest, or the most successful? What if the real secret is far simpler and far more powerful than you've ever imagined? In his best-selling book, How to Become a People Magnet, Marc Reklau reveals that genuine influence doesn't come from pretending to be someone you're not. It comes from understanding yourself, communicating with authenticity, mastering your emotions, and making other people feel valued every time they interact with you. Becoming a people magnet isn't about changing your personality. It's about removing the invisible habits that have been hiding your best self all along. So before we begin, I want you to imagine something. Picture yourself walking into any room with quiet confidence. Conversations begin naturally. People remember your name. They trust your opinion. They enjoy being around you, not because you're trying to impress them, but because your presence makes them feel comfortable, understood, and genuinely appreciated. That version of yourself isn't imaginary. It's built one habit, one conversation, and one decision at a time. And today, that journey begins. Theomin. Đây là định dạng mở đầu phù hợp với các kênh audiobook triệu view. Tạo tò mò ngay từ câu đầu, hứa hẹn giá trị rõ ràng, mở một open loop để giữ chân người xem, rồi chuyển mượt vào nội dung chính. Nếu muốn tăng tỷ lệ giữ chân hơn nữa, mình có thể viết theo phong cách Robert Greene, The Diary of a CEO, hoặc Escaping Ordinary với phần hook mạnh và điện ảnh hơn. Chapter 1, Continued. The Foundation of Attraction. Becoming emotionally attractive. Physical appearance may catch someone's attention. Success may spark admiration. Status may create curiosity. But none of those qualities guarantee lasting relationships. What truly keeps people coming back is the way they feel when they're with you. Marc Reklau explains that emotional attractiveness is one of the strongest forms of personal magnetism. It doesn't fade with time. Unlike money, it isn't dependent on circumstances. And unlike popularity, it doesn't rely on the opinions of strangers. Emotional attractiveness is built through the atmosphere you create around other people. It's reflected in the way you respond under pressure, the way you encourage others instead of competing with them, the way you remain calm when emotions begin to rise. These qualities aren't gifts reserved for a lucky few. They're habits. And like every habit, they can be practiced. Imagine someone criticizes your opinion during a conversation. Many people react immediately. They interrupt, defend themselves, or become frustrated. Emotionally attractive people choose a different path. Instead of reacting, they pause, they breathe, they become curious before becoming defensive. Rather than asking, "How do I prove I'm right?" they ask, "Why does this person see things differently?" That single shift changes everything. The conversation becomes less about winning and more about understanding. People notice that maturity. They remember it because emotional stability creates something everyone is searching for: safety. When people feel emotionally safe around you, they naturally begin trusting you. and trust is the foundation of every meaningful relationship. The quiet power of a genuine smile. Sometimes, the simplest habits create the greatest impact. A genuine smile is one of them. It costs nothing, requires no special talent, yet it has the ability to transform an entire interaction within seconds. A sincere smile immediately lowers tension. It signals warmth. It communicates openness, and it tells the other person, "You're welcome here." People instinctively respond to that feeling, not because they're analyzing your expression, but because the human brain is naturally wired to mirror emotions. When someone smiles sincerely, others often begin smiling without even realizing it. Their mood softens, the conversation becomes easier, the distance between two strangers begins to disappear. But there's an important difference between a genuine smile and one that's forced. People can sense authenticity remarkably well. A polite smile may satisfy social expectations. A genuine smile creates emotional connection. It isn't about pretending to be happy all the time. It's about approaching people with warmth rather than judgment, with openness rather than suspicion. That quiet warmth often speaks louder than words ever could. Your energy speaks before you do. Have you ever entered a room and immediately sensed the atmosphere before anyone even spoke? Perhaps the room felt relaxed, or tense, excited, or unusually quiet. The same thing happens with people. Long before others evaluate your words, they respond to your energy. If you constantly carry frustration, stress, or resentment, people often feel it, even if you never mention it aloud. Likewise, when you carry curiosity, optimism, and calm confidence, others naturally feel more comfortable in your presence. Your emotional state quietly influences every interaction you have. This doesn't mean pretending to be positive every moment of every day. Life isn't perfect. Everyone experiences disappointment, stress, and difficult seasons. The goal isn't fake positivity. It's becoming aware of what you consistently bring into a room. Ask yourself, do people usually leave conversations with you feeling lighter or heavier? Do they feel encouraged or emotionally exhausted? Your energy becomes part of every conversation, whether you intend it to or not. That's why becoming magnetic begins internally, long before anyone hears your voice. Small daily habits create lasting change. At this point, you might wonder, where do I even begin? The answer is simpler than most people expect, not with dramatic transformation, but with small, consistent actions. Marc Reklau reminds us that lasting personal growth rarely happens overnight. It grows through ed day after day. Begin each morning by reminding yourself of one quality you genuinely appreciate about yourself. Offer one sincere compliment. Practice listening without interrupting. Smile at someone without expecting anything in return. The next time frustration appears, pause before responding. None of these actions seem extraordinary on their own, but together, they slowly reshape your character. And eventually, your character reshapes your relationships. Becoming magnetic isn't about memorizing techniques. It's about becoming someone whose everyday habits naturally attract trust, respect, and genuine connection. Little by little, one conversation at a time, one choice at a time, you begin becoming the person you were always capable of being. Chapter 1. Summary. True attraction doesn't begin with appearance. It begins with authenticity. The strongest connections are created by people who respect themselves, treat others with genuine kindness, manage their emotions wisely, and consistently bring positive energy into every interaction. A warm smile, a calm response, a sincere interest in others. These may seem like small actions, yet over time, they become the invisible qualities people remember most. Because people aren't searching for perfection. They're searching for someone who makes them feel comfortable enough to simply be themselves. And that is where real magnetism begins. At the end of this first chapter, you've discovered that becoming magnetic isn't about changing your personality. It's about removing the fear, the doubt, and the habits that have been hiding your best self all along. In the next chapter, we'll move beyond your inner foundation and explore one of the greatest relationship building skills you'll ever develop: communication. Not simply speaking well, but learning how to listen so deeply that people leave every conversation feeling genuinely understood. Chapter 2. The Power of Communication. If attraction opens the door, communication is what invites people to stay. You can have a warm personality, a positive attitude, and the best intentions in the world. But if you struggle to communicate, relationships rarely grow beyond the surface. Many people believe communication is about speaking well, choosing the right words, giving impressive answers, always having something interesting to say. Marc Reklau challenges that idea from the very beginning. RS aren't necessarily the best speakers. They're the best listeners. That may sound simple, but it's one of the rarest skills in today's world. Most conversations aren't really conversations. They're two people waiting for their turn to speak. While someone else is talking, many people are already preparing their response, thinking about their own experience, their own opinion, or the story they want to tell next. As a result, very little genuine listening actually takes place, and people notice. They may not say it aloud, but they can feel when someone is only hearing words instead of truly listening. That's why the greatest gift you can offer another person is your full attention, because attention has become one of the most valuable things we can give. Listen to understand, not to reply. Imagine having a conversation with someone who never interrupts, never checks their phone, never looks around the room. Instead, they remain completely present. They listen carefully. They ask thoughtful questions. They remember small details you mentioned weeks ago. How would that make you feel? Probably respected, valued, important. That's exactly why listening creates such powerful connections. When people feel heard, their defenses begin to disappear. They become more open, more honest, more willing to trust. Listening isn't passive. It's one of the most active forms of communication. It requires patience, curiosity, and genuine interest in another human being. Instead of asking yourself, "What should I say next?" try asking, "What is this person really trying to tell me?" Sometimes the words matter. Sometimes the emotions behind those words matter even more. A friend may say, "I've been really busy lately," but underneath that sentence, they may actually be saying, "I'm exhausted. I'm overwhelmed. I need someone to understand." People don't always communicate their deepest feelings directly. That's why listening means hearing more than words. It means paying attention to emotions, tone of voice, facial expressions, and the pauses between sentences. Often, those silent moments reveal more than the conversation itself. Ask better questions. One thoughtful question can transform an ordinary conversation. Most people ask predictable questions. What do you do? How was your day? Where are you from? There's nothing wrong with those questions, but they often produce predictable answers. If you want deeper conversations, ask deeper questions. Instead of asking, "Did you enjoy your trip?" you might ask, "What was the most memorable moment?" Instead of saying, "How's work going?" try asking, "What's been the most exciting challenge you faced recently?" Notice what changes. The conversation becomes richer, more personal, more meaningful. People begin sharing experiences, not just information. They tell stories, describe emotions, reveal values, and that's where real connection begins. Marc Reklau emphasizes that people naturally enjoy talking about the things that matter most to them. When you create spa ions, you become someone they genuinely enjoy being around. Remember the small things. One of the easiest ways to make someone feel important is remembering what matters to them. Their name, a hobby they mentioned, an important goal, their child's birthday, a challenge they were facing. These details may seem small, but emotionally, they carry enormous weight because remembering communicates something powerful. You mattered enough for me to remember. Think about how you feel when someone recalls a conversation you barely expected them to remember. Perhaps they ask, "How did your interview go?" Or, "Did your daughter enjoy her first day of school?" Immediately, you realize they were paying attention, not because they had to, because they genuinely cared. Meaningful relationships are built through moments exactly like these, not through grand gestures, but through consistent acts of attention. People often forget what you said. They may even forget what you did, but they rarely forget how valued you made them feel. Speak with kindness words have extraordinary power. A few encouraging sentences can remain with someone for years, and unfortunately, a few careless words can do the same. That's why magnetic people choose their words carefully, not because they're afraid to speak honestly, but because they understand honesty and kindness can exist together. It's possible to disagree without being disrespectful, to offer criticism without humiliating someone, to speak the truth without destroying hope. Before speaking, ask yourself 3 simple questions. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Not every thought deserves to become a sentence. Sometimes wisdom means choosing silence. Other times it means choosing gentler words. People naturally trust those who communicate with both honesty and compassion because they know they can expect fairness, even during difficult conversations. Haber Chapter 2 Summary. Communication isn't measured by how much you say. It's measured by how well you help others feel understood. The strongest communicators listen with full attention. Ask meaningful questions. Remember the small details that matter, and speak with both honesty and kindness. These habits don't simply improve conversations, they strengthen relationships, build trust, and create lasting emotional connections. Because in the end, people don't remember every word you spoke. They remember how your presence made them feel. And when someone consistently leaves others feeling heard, respected, and appreciated, they become impossible to forget. At this point, you've built 2 powerful foundations. First, you learn that genuine attraction begins with authenticity and self-respect. Then, you discovered that meaningful relationships grow through listening, curiosity, and thoughtful communication. In the next chapter, we'll explore another quality shared by people who naturally attract others wherever they go. A positive attitude, not blind optimism, not pretending life is perfect, but developing a mindset that gives people hope, even when life becomes difficult. Chapter 3, the power of a positive attitude. Your attitude enters the room before your words ever do, long before people understand your personality or discover your talents. They begin responding to your outlook on life. Some individuals seem to carry a quiet sense of optimism wherever they go. After spending time with them, you feel lighter, more hopeful, more motivated. Others, without realizing it, carry the opposite effect. Every conversation revolves around problems. Every opportunity becomes another reason to worry. Every challenge is treated as proof that success is impossible. Over time, people naturally begin creating distance, not because they dislike them, but because emotions are contagious. Marc Reklau explains that the attitude we bring into our daily interactions has a profound influence on the people around us, very drawn toward those who make them feel hopeful, not hopeless, inspired, not discouraged. This doesn't mean pretending that life is always easy. It means choosing the perspective that helps you move forward, instead of remaining trapped by what has already happened. Optimism is a choice. You practice every day. Many people believe optimism is something you're born with. Either you're naturally positive or you're not. But that's not how it works. Optimism isn't denying reality. It's deciding where you'll place your attention. Every day, life offers you both problems and possibilities, disappointments and opportunities, failures and lessons. You cannot always control which experiences arrive, but you can decide which ones shape your thinking. Imagine 2 people losing the same opportunity. One immediately concludes, "Nothing ever works out for me." The other pauses and thinks, "This is disappointing, but maybe it's preparing me for something better." The situation hasn't changed. Only the interpretation has, and that interpretation influences every decision that follows. Optimistic people don't experience fewer setbacks. They simply refuse to let setbacks define their future. They understand that every difficult chapter is only one chapter, not the entire story. That mindset creates resilience, and resilience is one of the most attractive qualities anyone can develop. because people naturally admire those who continue moving forward, even after life has tested them. Focus on solutions, not just problems. Everyone notices problems. That's easy. Finding solutions requires a different way of thinking. When something goes wrong, many people immediately begin asking, why does this always happen to me? Who's responsible? What if things get even worse? Questions like these keep the mind trapped inside the problem. Magnetic people ask different questions. What can I learn from this? What's the next step? What can I still control? Those questions don't erase the difficulty. They simply redirect your attention toward progress. Think about the people you enjoy working with. Chances are they aren't the ones who complain the most. They're the ones who remain calm, offer ideas, and help move everyone forward. That kind of mindset is contagious. One solution-focused person can completely change the emotional atmosphere of an entire team. Instead of spreading frustration, they spread confidence, and confidence inspires action. Gratitude changes the way you see the world. It's easy to focus on what's missing, the promotion you didn't receive, the opportunity that slipped away, the goal you haven't achieved yet. But when your attention stays fixed on what you lack, life begins to feel smaller. Gratitude shifts that perspective. It reminds you of everything that already exists, the people who support you, the lessons you've learned, the progress you've already made, even the simple moments that often go unnoticed. A peaceful morning, a meaningful conversation, a chance to begin again. Gratitude doesn't ignore ambition. You can still dream bigger, work harder, and pursue greater success. The difference is, you no longer believe happiness must wait until everything is perfect. You learn to appreciate today while still building tomorrow. People are naturally drawn to those who appreciate life because appreciation creates warmth, and warmth creates connection. Protect your mind from constant negativity. The people around you influence your thinking more than you may realize. Spend enough time with people who constantly complain, and eventually, complaining begins to feel normal. Spend enough time with people who believe growth is possible, and your own perspective begins to expand. This doesn't mean avoiding anyone who's struggling. Everyone needs support from time to time. But there's a difference between helping someone through a difficult season and living inside a mindset that refuses to grow. Pay attention to the conversations you have most often. Do they leave you feeling inspired or emotionally drained? Do they encourage growth or reinforce excuses? The environment you choose becomes part of the person you become. That's why protecting your mindset isn't selfish. It's necessary because you cannot consistently inspire others if your own perspective is constantly being pulled downward. Chapter 3 Summary. A positive attitude isn't about pretending life is perfect. It's about choosing hope over helplessness, growth over excuses, solutions over complaints. Optimistic people still experience disappointment. They still face obstacles. They still have difficult days. But they refuse to allow temporary setbacks to become permanent beliefs. They look for lessons, practice gratitude, protect their mindset, and bring energy that encourages others instead of discouraging them. That quiet optimism becomes one of the strongest forms of personal magnetism because people naturally move toward those who remind them that tomorrow can be better than today. As you continue this journey, you've now built 3 powerful foundations: authenticity, communication, and a positive mindset. Together, these qualities begin transforming not only how others see you, but how you experience every relationship in your life. In the next chapter, we'll explore another essential ingredient of becoming a true people magnet: the art of building genuine relationships. Because attracting people is only the beginning. Learning how to nurture meaningful, lasting connections is what truly changes your life. Chapter 4. Building genuine relationships. Meeting new people is relatively easy. Keeping meaningful relationships alive is something entirely different. Many people spend years learning how to make a good first impression. Very few learn how to create connections that continue growing long after that first conversation ends. Marc Reklau reminds us that relationships are not built through occasional grand gestures. They are built through small, consistent acts of care repeated over time. Won't happen overnight. They grow through trust, shared experiences, honesty, and genuine interest in another person's life. Like a tree, strong relationships need time, they need attention, and above all, they need consistency. The strongest connections aren't always the loudest. Often, they're the quiet relationships where both people know, no matter what happens, I can count on you. That kind of trust is priceless, and it never happens by accident. Give before you expect anything in return. One of the biggest mistakes people make is approaching relationships as transactions. If I help them, what will I get back? If I spend time with them, will it benefit me? Although these questions are rarely spoken aloud, people can often sense them. Genuine kindness never keeps score. It gives because giving is part of who you are. Imagine two coworkers. One only offers help when their manager is watching. The other quietly supports everyone, whether anyone notices or not. Which person earns deeper respect over time? Almost always. The second, because consistency reveals character. Small acts of generosity, offering encouragement, sharing useful advice, helping someone solve a problem, celebrating another person's success. These moments may seem insignificant, yet together, they become the foundation of lifelong relationships. People rarely remember every favor you did, but they remember how willingly you gave it. When kindness becomes a habit instead of a strategy, people begin trusting your intentions, and trust is where every meaningful relationship begins. Learn to celebrate other people's success. Success has an interesting way of revealing character. When someone else succeeds, some people feel inspired, others feel threatened. Comparison quietly enters the conversation. Jealousy begins replacing admiration. Without realizing it, they create distance between themselves and the very people they could have learned from. Magnetic people choose a different response. They celebrate, not because they have perfect lives, but because they understand that another person's success doesn't reduce their own potential. Life isn't a competition with limited winners. Someone else's achievement isn't proof that you failed. It's proof that success is possible. Imagine a close friend receiving the promotion you hoped for. Your first emotional reaction may be disappointment. That's natural. But what happens next defines your character. Do you withdraw, become distant, or do you sincerely congratulate them and continue supporting their journey? People never forget those moments, because celebrating another person's happiness without hidden resentment is one of the clearest signs of emotional maturity. And emotional maturity creates lasting respect. Be reliable. There is one quality almost everyone looks for in a friend, a partner, a colleague, or a leader: reliability. Can people depend on you? Do your actions match your words? Do you follow through on your commitments, even when it's inconvenient? Promises may seem small at the moment they're made, but every promise kept strengthens trust. Every promise broken weakens it. Sometimes the difference isn't dramatic. It's simply arriving when you said you would, returning a phone call, remembering an important date, doing what you promised without needing to be reminded. Reliability creates emotional safety. People relax around those they can depend on. They stop questioning intentions. They stop wondering whether they'll be disappointed again. Instead, they begin believing your words because your actions consistently support them. Trust isn't built through impressive speeches. It's built through dependable behavior. Day after day, conversation after conversation, year after year. Stay connected, even when life gets busy. Modern life moves quickly. Work becomes demanding, schedules fill up, responsibilities multiply. Before long, weeks become months, months become years, and relationships quietly fade, not because anyone intended it, but because no one protected them. Meaningful relationships require maintenance. Sometimes a simple message is enough. I was thinking about you today. How have you been? I hope everything is going well. These words may only take a few seconds to send, but they communicate something powerful. You still matter to me. You don't need extravagant gifts or elaborate plans. Often, the greatest gift you can offer someone is reminding them they haven't been forgotten. People who consistently nurture relationships rarely find themselves alone during difficult seasons because they've spent years investing in people, long before they needed support themselves. Relationships grow where attention goes. Neglect them, and they slowly disappear. Care for them, and they become one of life's greatest treasures. Learn to forgive without forgetting the lesson. No relationship is perfect. Misunderstandings happen. Words are spoken in frustration. Mistakes are made. If you expect perfection from everyone, you'll spend much of your life disappointed. Forgiveness doesn't mean pretending nothing happened, nor does it mean allowing harmful behavior to continue. It means choosing not to let bitterness control your future. Holding on to resentment often hurts the person carrying it, more than the person who caused it. Forgiveness creates freedom, not because the past changes, but because your relationship with the past changes. At the same time, wisdom asks us to learn from every experience. You can forgive and still establish healthier boundaries. You can release anger without abandoning discernment. Healthy relationships require both compassion and wisdom. When those two qualities work together, trust has room to grow again. Chapter 4 Summary. Strong relationships are never built by chance. They are created through consistent kindness, reliable actions, genuine generosity, and sincere appreciation for others. People remember those who celebrate their victories, who keep their promises, who stay connected even during busy seasons, and who choose forgiveness over resentment, without losing the wisdom that difficult experiences provide. At the heart of every lasting relationship is one simple truth. People don't stay because you impressed them once. They stay because your character consistently gives them a reason to trust you. And trust, more than charm, more than talent, more than popularity, is what turns ordinary acquaintances into lifelong relationships. You've now discovered that becoming a people magnet isn't about attracting attention. It's about building trust, one relationship at a time. In the next chapter, we'll explore another powerful principle from Marc Reklau's book, Emotional Intelligence. Because understanding your own emotions and learning to understand the emotions of others may be the single greatest advantage you can develop in every relationship you build. Chapter 5, Emotional Intelligence. There is one ability that quietly shapes every relationship, every conversation, and every first impression you leave behind. Yet it rarely appears on a resume. It isn't measured by grades, and no one can earn it overnight. That ability is emotional intelligence. Marc Reklau explains that becoming a people magnet has very little to do with saying perfect words. Instead, it depends on understanding emotions, both your own and those of the people around you. Ours learning how to communicate. Very few learn how to understand the emotions that drive communication. And yet, emotions influence almost every decision people make. Every friendship, every disagreement, every act of kindness, every misunderstanding. Behind each one, there is an emotion waiting to be understood. The more emotionally intelligent you become, the easier every relationship begins to feel. Not because people become less complicated, but because you become better at understanding them. Understand yourself before trying to understand others. Every meaningful relationship begins with self-awareness. Before you can understand another person's emotions, you must first recognize your own. How often do you stop and ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? Most people don't. They simply react. They become frustrated, defensive, impatient, or disappointed without ever asking what created those feelings. Emotional intelligence begins with a pause. Instead of reacting automatically, you become curious. Perhaps your frustration isn't really about today's conversation. Perhaps it's the stress you've been carrying for weeks. Maybe your anger isn't directed at the person standing in front of you. Maybe it's disappointment you've never fully processed. When you recognize your emotions, they lose much of their power over your actions. You stop becoming controlled by every feeling that appears. Instead, you begin choosing how to respond. That single habit can completely transform your relationships because people don't judge you by what you feel. They judge you by what you do with those feelings. Learn to recognize the emotions of others. Every person you meet is carrying a story you cannot see. Some are celebrating victories. Others are quietly fighting battles they've never spoken about. Some smile while hiding exhaustion. Others appear distant when they're actually overwhelmed. If you only listen to words, you'll miss most of the conversation. Emotionally intelligent people pay attention to what isn't being said. They notice changes in someone's voice, the expression on their face, their body language, their energy. Sometimes, a simple, "You seem quieter than usual. Is everything okay?" can mean more than an hour of ordinary conversation. Not because you've solved their problem, but because you've noticed. Being noticed is something every human being longs for. When people feel understood, they naturally begin opening up. Trust grows, walls come down, and conversations become more honest. Real connection rarely begins with advice. It begins with understanding. Empathy creates stronger relationships. Empathy is often misunderstood. Many people believe empathy means agreeing with everyone or feeling sorry for them. It doesn't. Empathy simply means seeing the world from another person's perspective. Even if you would have responded differently, imagine a friend telling you about a mistake they deeply regret. An emotionally unaware response might sound like, "You shouldn't have done that," or "I told you this would happen." The facts may be true, but they do little to strengthen the relationship. An empathetic response sounds different. "That must have been incredibly difficult. I can understand why you feel that way." Notice what changes. The problem hasn't disappeared, but the person no longer feels alone. Sometimes, people don't need immediate solutions. They simply need someone willing to sit beside them, without judgment. Empathy doesn't erase pain, but it makes pain easier to carry. And people never forget those who stayed with them during difficult moments. Control your reactions. Life will always present situations you cannot control. Someone may criticize you unfairly. A misunderstanding may occur. Plans may suddenly change. Disappointment is inevitable. Your reaction is not. Emotionally intelligent people understand that every reaction creates another consequence. An angry response may damage years of trust. A careless sentence may remain in someone's memory long after you've forgotten saying it. That's why they develop the habit of slowing down. They breathe. They think. They choose their words carefully. This doesn't mean suppressing emotion. It means refusing to let temporary emotions make permanent decisions. Real strength isn't found in never becoming emotional. It's found in remaining thoughtful. Even when emotions become intense, that quiet self-control inspires confidence because people naturally feel safe around someone who remains steady, even during difficult conversations. Compassion makes you truly memorable. At the end of the day, people may forget your achievements. They may forget your titles. Even your greatest successes may slowly fade from memory. But kindness leaves a lasting impression. Compassion isn't weakness. It isn't pretending every person is perfect. It's choosing to respond with humanity. A few encouraging words, a patient conversation, a willingness to listen, a sincere apology when you're wrong. These moments often become the memories people carry for years. The world is already full of criticism, competition, and judgment. The people who stand out are often those who offer something different: understanding, patience, grace. These qualities quietly transform ordinary conversations into meaningful relationships. And over time, they become part of your reputation, not because you were trying to impress anyone, but because compassion naturally leaves people feeling better than before they met you. Chapter 5. Summary. Emotional intelligence begins with understanding yourself. From there, it grows into understanding others, recognizing emotions before reacting, listening beneath the surface, showing empathy instead of judgment, responding thoughtfully instead of impulsively, and choosing compassion whenever possible. These aren't dramatic changes. They're small decisions repeated every day. Yet together, They shape every relationship you'll ever have. Because becoming a people magnet isn't about making people admire you. It's about making people feel understood. And when someone consistently helps others feel seen, heard, and valued, their influence reaches far beyond words. You've now developed another essential piece of personal magnetism, not through clever techniques, but through emotional awareness. In the next chapter, Marc Reklau explores a habit that quietly determines whether relationships continue growing or slowly fade away: the power of appreciation and gratitude. Because one sincere expression of appreciation can strengthen a relationship more than 100 ordinary conversations. Chapter 6: The Power of Appreciation and Gratitude. In every relationship, there is one simple need that almost everyone shares: the desire to feel appreciated, not admired, not praised for every little thing, simply appreciated. To know that their effort mattered, that someone noticed, that their presence made a difference. Marc Reklau explains that appreciation is one of the simplest yet most powerful ways to strengthen human relationships. It is also one of the qualities people express the least. We often assume that those closest to us already know how much they mean to us: our family, our closest friends, our coworkers, our partners. So we postpone saying the words, "I'll thank them later. They already know how I feel. I'll tell them another time." But life has a way of moving quickly. Days become weeks, weeks become years, and opportunities to express gratitude quietly disappear. The people who leave the greatest impact aren't always those who accomplish the most. They're often the ones who consistently make others feel valued. Because appreciation answers one of the deepest emotional questions every person carries: do I matter? Notice what others often overlook. One of the easiest ways to practice appreciation is simply paying attention. Every day, people perform countless acts of kindness that go unnoticed. A colleague stays late to finish a project. A friend checks in after hearing you've had a difficult week. A family member quietly handles responsibilities without asking for recognition. Most people see the result. Few notice the effort. Magnetic people notice both. They understand that behind every achievement, there was time, energy, sacrifice, and commitment. A simple sentence like, "I noticed how much work you put into this," can mean far more than extravagant praise, because it tells the other person, "I saw your effort." Recognition doesn't need to be dramatic. It simply needs to be sincere. People don't expect constant compliments. They appreciate genuine acknowledgement. And sincerity is something that cannot be faked. Express gratitude while you still can. One of the greatest regrets many people carry is not expressing gratitude soon enough. Waiting until retirement to thank a mentor. Waiting until someone moves away to tell them they mattered. Waiting until loss reminds us of everything we never said. Gratitude becomes most powerful when it's expressed in the present, not someday, today. You don't need a special occasion. You don't need perfect words. Sometimes a heartfelt "thank you for always being there" is enough to change someone's entire day. Never underestimate the impact of simple appreciation. You may forget the conversation tomorrow, but the other person may remember it for years. Because genuine gratitude reaches far beyond words. It touches something deeply human: the need to know that our efforts have made a difference. Appreciation creates more appreciation. Have you ever noticed how kindness often inspires more kindness? One smile encourages another. One act of generosity inspires someone else to give. Gratitude works the same way. When people feel appreciated, they naturally become more willing to appreciate others. A culture of gratitude begins to grow. This is true within families, friendships, workplaces, communities, and every meaningful relationship. One sincere expression of appreciation can quietly influence dozens of future interactions. Because emotions spread, respect spreads, kindness spreads. The atmosphere around you often reflects the emotional habits you consistently practice. If criticism becomes the dominant habit, relationships slowly become colder. If appreciation becomes the habit, relationships grow stronger, not because people become perfect, but because they feel seen. Gratitude changes you more than anyone else. Most people think gratitude benefits the person receiving it, and it certainly does. But perhaps the greatest transformation happens within the person expressing it. When you actively look for reasons to be grateful, your attention begins shifting. Instead of focusing only on what's missing, you begin noticing what's already present. Instead of seeing only problems, you begin recognizing blessings. Instead of measuring life by what you lack, you begin appreciating what you already have. This doesn't reduce ambition, it strengthens it. Because contentment and growth can exist together. You can be deeply grateful while still pursuing bigger dreams. Gratitude reminds you that happiness isn't postponed until some future achievement. It can exist alongside today's journey. That perspective creates peace, and peaceful people naturally become easier to be around. Appreciation must be genuine. People can immediately sense the difference between appreciation and flattery. Flattery seeks approval. Appreciation recognizes value. Flattery exaggerates. Appreciation tells the truth. One manipulates, the other strengthens trust. That's why sincerity matters so much. Don't compliment people simply to gain something. Notice the qualities you genuinely admire: their honesty, their patience, their generosity, their dedication. Then tell them, not because you're expecting anything in return, but because truth deserves to be spoken. Some of the most meaningful compliments are also the simplest. I appreciate how dependable you've always been. You made a difficult day much easier. Thank you for believing in me. Words like these are remembered, not because they're elaborate, but because they're real. Chapter 6, Summary. Appreciation is one of the most powerful gifts you can offer another person. It costs nothing, requires only attention, and yet its impact can last a lifetime. By noticing effort, expressing gratitude without delay, creating a culture of appreciation, and choosing sincerity over flattery, you strengthen every relationship you touch. At the same time, gratitude transforms your own perspective, helping you focus less on what's missing and more on the abundance already present in your life. Because people are naturally drawn toward those who make them feel valued, and few things communicate value more clearly than genuine appreciation. At this stage of your journey, you've learned that becoming a people magnet isn't about attracting attention. It's about creating an experience people remember, an experience built on authenticity, thoughtful communication, optimism, strong relationships, emotional intelligence, and sincere gratitude. In the next chapter, we'll explore one final quality that quietly brings all of these principles together: personal growth and lifelong improvement. Because the most magnetic people never stop becoming better versions of themselves. Chapter 7, Personal Growth and Lifelong Improvement. There is one final lesson that connects everything you've learned so far: authenticity, communication, optimism, relationships, emotional intelligence, gratitude. None of these qualities remain strong unless they continue to grow. Marc Reklau closes the book with a simple but powerful reminder. Becoming a people magnet isn't a destination you reach one day. It's a lifelong journey of becoming a better version of yourself. Personal growth ends after school, or after finding a good career, or after achieving financial success. But life never stops teaching. Every conversation becomes a lesson. Every mistake becomes feedback. Every challenge becomes another opportunity to grow. The people who continue attracting others throughout their lives all share one habit: they never stop learning, not because they feel inadequate, but because they understand that growth makes every area of life richer. Every improvement you make within yourself quietly improves every relationship around you. Stay curious. One of the greatest enemies of personal growth is believing you've already learned enough. Curiosity keeps the mind alive. It reminds us that every person we meet knows something we don't. Every experience carries a lesson. Every challenge contains an opportunity hidden beneath the discomfort. Curious people ask questions. They read. They listen. They observe. They remain open to new perspectives. Instead of assuming they already have every answer, they become students of life. That mindset makes conversations exciting because every interaction becomes an opportunity to discover something new. People naturally enjoy spending time with curious individuals, not because they know everything, but because they genuinely want to learn. Curiosity creates humility, and humility makes growth possible. Accept mistakes as part of the journey. Many people fear making mistakes. They worry about looking foolish, being criticized, or disappointing others. As a result, they avoid taking risks, avoid trying new things, and slowly stop growing. But mistakes are not the opposite of success. They're part of it. Every skill you've ever developed began with imperfection. Walking, speaking, driving, learning a language, building relationships. Each required failure before confidence appeared. The same is true for becoming more magnetic. Some conversations won't go well. Some misunderstandings will happen. Sometimes you'll say the wrong thing or miss an opportunity to connect. That doesn't mean you failed. It means you're learning. Growth isn't measured by perfection. It's measured by progress. The only real failure is refusing to learn from experience. Invest in yourself every day. Personal growth doesn't require dramatic changes. It grows through consistent daily habits. Reading a few pages of a good book, listening carefully during conversations, reflecting on your day before going to sleep, learning a new skill, practicing patience, improving your health, developing better habits. None of these actions seem extraordinary on their own, but over months and years, they completely transform who you become. Think of personal growth like planting a tree. You won't notice dramatic changes overnight, but if you continue watering it, protecting it, and giving it time, eventually its roots become strong, its branches grow wide, and one day it provides shade not only for you, but for everyone around you. The same is true of character. Every small investment compounds over time, until the person you are today looks remarkably different from the person you were years ago. Become someone who inspires others. Perhaps the greatest reward of personal growth isn't what it does for you, it's what it allows you to do for others. As you become more patient, you help others feel calmer. As you become a better listener, others feel understood. As you become more optimistic, people begin believing in themselves again. Your growth never belongs only to you. It quietly influences your family, your friends, your coworkers, even strangers you may never meet again. Every act of kindness, every encouraging conversation, every thoughtful decision creates a ripple that continues long after the moment has passed. That's what true influence looks like. It isn't loud. It isn't dramatic. It simply improves the lives of people who cross your path. And over time, those small moments become your legacy. Never lose your authenticity as you continue improving yourself. Remember one final truth. Growth should never require pretending to be someone you're not. The goal isn't becoming someone else. It's becoming more completely yourself. The world doesn't need another imitation. It needs people who are genuine, people whose words match their actions, whose kindness isn't performed, whose confidence isn't borrowed, whose character remains steady, whether anyone is watching or not. Authenticity creates trust. Trust creates connection, and connection creates influence. Everything you've learned throughout this audiobook returns to this simple idea. The most magnetic people aren't trying to impress the world. They're simply living with honesty, purpose, and compassion. Final summary. Over the course of this journey, you've discovered that becoming a people magnet has very little to do with charm alone. It begins with accepting yourself, communicating with genuine interest, choosing optimism instead of negativity, building relationships through trust, developing emotional intelligence, expressing sincere appreciation, and committing to lifelong personal growth. None of these habits require extraordinary talent. They simply require consistency. Small actions, repeated every day. A smile offered without expectation. A thoughtful question, a promise kept, a moment of patience, a word of encouragement. These are the quiet choices that slowly shape extraordinary lives. People may not remember every conversation you've had together, but they will remember how they felt in your presence. whether they felt respected, valued, safe, encouraged, or inspired. That is the true meaning of becoming a people magnet. Not attracting attention, but attracting trust. Not collecting acquaintances, but building meaningful relationships. Not changing who you are, but revealing the very best version of yourself. Because in the end, the greatest influence you'll ever have will never come from your success alone. It will come from the way you make people feel. And that is something no one ever forgets. Thank you for listening. If there's one lesson to carry with you after closing this book, let it be this: every conversation is an opportunity. Every person you meet is fighting battles you cannot see. Every act of kindness matters, and every day gives you another chance to become just a little more patient, a little more understanding, a little more authentic. You don't have to become perfect. You simply have to keep growing. One conversation, one relationship, one day at a time. Because the most magnetic people in the world are not the ones who shine the brightest. They are the ones who help others discover their own light. The end.